a live video here. We're going to continue on with the number 4, and I'm going to pick up where I left off on these foam wings. We're pretty much done cutting the foam. Now we're going to get into the balsa wood part of it, the sheeting. It's been done before, but there's a couple things that might interest you. So we'll go over that. With the live stream, I don't guarantee anything. We got power companies running around here burying power lines, and we got lawnmowers running, dogs barking, neighbors stopping by. So you never know what's going to happen. So we're going to wing it like we always do. And hopefully, when it's all said and done, there'll be something on here that you'll find interesting or usable. Move this thing back here a little bit. So what I got set up here is the balsa wood. I'm getting ready to edge cut and edge sand this balsa wood. And with this table, this glass falls short of the edge of the table, which actually gives me a 90-degree sanding surface, which you'll see here in a minute. The other thing you'll notice is the well pump kicking on and off. When you do laundry or something, you get the well pump coming on and off. I'm going to see if I can get this live stream up on the TV. So if you guys have a comment or you have questions, I'll be able to answer it. I've been doing this YouTube stuff for probably 5 years, and I'm continuously trying to figure out how this all works together. Everything changes, cameras, so it's a work in progress. See, I get my live chat going here on the TV. Get the TV so I'm not over talking myself. Okay, so let's get started here on some wood. So this is my core, basically my shuck, and for all practical purposes I need, I need some sheeting, this wide, because what I'll do is I'll split it down the middle and then I'll have top and bottom. And this sheeting that I've got here, it's full 36 inches. Well, this is a 35 size wing. I don't need the full 36 inches. So there's no reason to edge glue a bunch of extra that you really don't need at the time. So I need to cut that off. And if you're into a lot of cutting and you try to maintain the razor blades, they got mats you can buy that actually keep your blade from getting dull. Now, one of the things you got to bear with me, I'm not sure if I'm boring people. Now, the people that tune into this channel, I look at the metrics every once in a great while, and it's sort of an eye-opener. I'm looking at metrics that 90% of the people in the last couple of days were new viewers, believe it or not. 70% of the view hours that people watch his channel, they're not even subscribers, so they're just passing through. So it's one of these things where I'm not really sure who the audience is, whether it's informative to you or it's boring. I have a handful of people that come by, pretty frequent, So, but then there's always the new ones. So if you chime in here and you got a question, or even better than that, if you have some advice for me, I'd love to hear it. Now this isn't 4-pound wood. It's 5.5. The other thing, when you have wood and you weigh it and you put the weight on the wood, it might be beneficial when you cut the excess off to leave that on there so you know what you have here. It sort of tells you what the weight of the whole sheet was. Whether or not that translates to this piece here, it's hard to tell. I'll try to stay on camera here. Now the next step, I'm going to edge these things. Now, when I used to do a whole bunch of it, I'd run it across a joiner. But being just one stack of sheet, I'm just going to go ahead and we'll just run the razor blade down the edge here, true it up. Try to hold the knife vertical. It's easy to get at an angle. So maintain a straight vertical cut. To save confusion, I'll just do both sides. Sometimes if I do one side and I flip it around, I can't remember which side is true. So this sheet is pretty straight. I'm not cutting too much of a curve off of it. So the whole idea, which will become apparent here on this wing as I move along, I'm trying to actually mimic a molded balsa composite core that you'd have out of a mold by utilizing a foam core. So it's like a molded wing without the mold. I guess the mold you can consider the actual foam wing. I could have done a little bit of this off the camera, but the idea is to speed it up as far as the editing. I try to get this thing laid out to where I don't waste too many steps walking around looking for stuff. And I still am able to move along. What I'm going to try to accomplish is get this thing in a vacuum bag. And I might do a little extra if it goes fairly quick, or if I got enough time where the power didn't go out. This strip of metal, this was from Metal Supermarkets. It's I believe it's stainless. It came off of their shear. It's probably 1/32, I don't know. It's pretty thin. And they had a 55-gallon drum full of these strips. They were cut-offs. I went back there and picked through a bunch of them, and I double-checked to make sure that they're straight. So I got some good ones. While we're on the subject of straight edges, I'm going to show you something. Don't ever assume that you buy a straight edge that it's straight. Now, you can argue that this thing here is not a straight edge. You can argue that it's a ruler. And obviously it is. It's got, it goes to 40 inches. This has been trued up. I know this is straight. So when I was checking out, it's Wood River. So I got this in Woodcraft. So when I was checking out, they had a pile of these things, and when you check out, they said, "Would you want one of these for $1?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'll take it for $1, stainless steel. It's got, all of these inches, and it translates into millimeters, so it's got a lot of functionality. And it's got millimeters and inches, so I come home and I strip a piece of wood and I put the two together. I thought, man, that thing bowed on me. So it's hard to tell. I'm not going to move the camera, but okay, we're tight here. Okay, it's sort of tight along here. It falls off, and I'm not joking. Right here, we have got not just a little bit. We've got almost 1/8 of an inch right here. This thing is so bowed. So always have something that you can actually verify being straight. And I bought an actual machine straight edge. They're sort of pricey, not too bad, but they've got a milled edge plus or minus 1,048 inches. So you got to have something that actually is your starting point. So that's just a little tip. Just because it's a straight edge doesn't mean it's straight. Now I've got this wood over here. What I need to do is get a sanded edge on this wood. And here's how I do it. I take a tube, metal supermarkets again, or a hardware store. And as you're in there digging through the pile of scrap or whatever they got, make sure that it's straight. And how do you do that? You can bring your straight edge in and you start checking everything. So what I like to do on this square tube, I like to put sandpaper on one side or opposite sides and leave one side or two sides without anything. This glass tabletop falls short of the bench on purpose. It's a 4x8 bench, but I shortened it. And what that allows me to do is sandwich this wood on the glass, and I let it overhang. And I come back with another tube and I ride it on the bench. And that allows me to edge sand the sheet to get a really good finished edge on it. Now, you can have it hanging over maybe 1/4 or 3/16 or whatever. You got to have enough for your thumb, I guess, you know, to work the bar. The other thing is, if you have a 36-inch sheet, it's nice to have a 4-foot bar, something that is actually a little bit longer than the piece you're sanding. You want the sandpaper to maintain contact with the wood at all times, preferably. Not doesn't have to, but your best edge is going to be when you actually maintain the edge in full contact. Now it's pretty hard to screw this up as far as angling this edge because you're actually riding against the bench. Now, when I shove this bar over, I could hear something hitting. I've got a little tick mark right here. It's like where I bumped this bar. That's just anything with aluminum. You got to be careful. You don't bump the end and you get a little burr on it. Couldn't figure out what that noise was. There we go. Keep it away from the glass. And of course, try to keep the dust down. Eventually, you're going to have to get the dust out of the equation there. Let me see if I got anybody watching this thing. Let's see here. We got 5. Okay. Well, at least I know I'm streaming. The other thing that might happen when you actually start gluing these sheets together is that when you start pinching them, and they might relax or they start to bow on you a little bit. It's not any big deal. You can always run the straight edge down, bring it over here, and run another edge on it. As I'm looking at this sheet, I can tell if there's any open areas. I'm looking right down here. It's like I'm not sanding right at the edge. So we'll see how they come together. This is a good setup to have, even if you're not doing wing sheeting. If you want to edge sand anything. Another alternative is get a chunk of aluminum that's an L. Put sandpaper on one face and pull it up just a hair short, like a few thousandths down in the corner. And that way you can lay your sheet or block up next to that flat sand against the vertical. There's all different ways to come up with 90. So now let's see what we got here, see if this stuff comes together. And that's looking good. So we're going to live with this. Now, this part, everybody's got their own way of doing it. This is what I've always done. And as far as gluing, let me get my stuff put away. I've got a lot of stuff in the way here. So this part, you're going to need CA paper towel, maybe kicker. Let me adjust the camera. I got to make sure that I'm in the frame here. I'll leave these tubes out in case I need them. So once you're happy with the fit, then you're going to go back and you're going to look at the grain. If you have C grain, I like to keep it towards the trailing edge. AB grain, you know, the curve, if you're going to mold it, especially leading edge. So I'll take a piece of tape and get the full length. Lay it together. I don't really squeeze too hard, I just lay it together. I'll tack the tape on the glass here so I can pull it. And I'll come over here. I'll get it started right here. Doesn't have to be perfect. Come back here, line it up. Okay, now when I push the tape down, I sort of squeeze the sheets together very slightly like this. It doesn't take much, but you want to put a little pinching pressure on the tape or on the balsa wood Now, once you get it laid out, give it a good rub. You can clean the excess off here. Flip it over and double check your seam. I like to rub it again right here. Make sure it's down tight. Get some paper towel going. And I hang it over the edge. This is my hinge right here. Now it takes a little practice on this glue. But if you do it a few times, you can actually watch it. It'll almost wick out of there without you squeezing the bottle. And just run a real nice seam down there. Immediately wipe it, okay? Any excess is bubbling out. And now you've got glue the full length. And by rubbing the dust into the seam with the paper towel, it actually kicks off the CA that you've just put here, but it's not cured all the way through, so flip it. Get rid of the tape. Give it another pinch, you know. Make sure that it's still tight. And what you can do is you can lift it up a little bit to make sure it pinches this side. And then of course, by rubbing it with more dust, it'll cure up relatively quick. So right now, you can handle this sheet. And I don't know if you can tell or not, but Robert, yeah, believe it or not, the CA, this is thin. But here's the kicker, pardon the pun. The 2P10 has got a really good shelf life. It's thin, but it's not as thin as when I first bought it. It's thickening up a little bit. So I would guess if you'd actually check the viscosity of this old thin, it's probably between the hobby shop thin and the medium. It falls in somewhere in that line. I got medium, but the medium is starting to go on the thick side. So it's just one of those things that's like, well, you sort of on the fly. Now here's a piece of wood that's got, oh, I don't know, looked like it'd been sitting on the gravel road. I gotta pay attention to that. I'm not sure if I can position this piece of wood. I'm gonna hold off on that piece. Let me glue this one in. If I can get that one on the end somewhere where it's gonna be cut off, I'll use it. If not, I'll have to do something else with it. Putting a lid on that top, yeah, the moisture I think is actually detrimental to the CA. These are left over from a construction site. We'd use them on trim and stuff. So for hobby use, it's too much. The bottle's so dang big, but it's so good. The shelf life is good. So I was in Woodcraft and I bought some CA, and I can't remember the brand because it doesn't matter. And I brought it home and I thought, man, this stuff is terrible. It wouldn't kick. You had to load it up with kicker and then it would think about it. So it was the complete opposite of everything I'd ever used before in CA. So I thought, what's wrong with this stuff? And I thought, well, the last resort, right, is read the directions. So anyway, I look at the bottle And basically the CA is formulated for pen makers. And if you're into wood turning, the guys that make these little fountain pens, what they like to do is as it's spinning, they'll take some CA and they'll coat it with a CA and it'll work it into the wood and then they'll buff it. And it was formulated for finishing. And I thought, well, that makes sense. You know, you got the CA that takes forever to cure. I guess that would make sense with the wood turners. So get everything set up. I got a little angle on the CA tip. If I fall out, basically my CA runs on the wood a little bit. You're going to see where the CA, it doesn't really matter when it comes to sanding. I got a way of sanding these things that worked out great for me. The biggest mistake people make when sanding, mercury adhesive, okay. I'll have to look into that, Robert. Mercury adhesive. The biggest mistake people make when they sand glue is the sandpaper's not coarse enough. And in my experience, what happens is if you have fine sandpaper in a hard glue joint, especially if you have a sanding block with a soft pad on it, if, let's just say this is the glue joint, so you have your wood and your glue joint sticking up, what happens when the sandpaper goes over, it goes over the top, it polishes the top as you're gouging out the wood around it. You want a big surface area with a relatively coarse grit that actually knocks this ridge off, and I'll explain that when I get the sanding pad out. So there's 3 sheets glued together. Basically there's no gaps. It looks, in all practical purposes, like one piece of wood. Now here's where I was going to check. I got one more sheet. Now see, there's enough here where I can use this piece on the outside and that won't come into effect. I just want to make sure before I glued that on there it was okay. So looks like we're still lined up okay. This blue tape, it says Scotch number 2080EL. Edge lock is EL. It's made for painting. The only reason I'm using this tape is not because it's anything special for this project. It probably doesn't matter because the tape is on and off so quick. The only reason I've got this tape is because it was on clearance at Richie Lou. I went in there and bought a couple sleeves of it. I'm a sucker for clearance. Save a buck. Now let's see if I can get this tip cleaned up a little bit so I can actually stay on the edge of the wood. Clean it up a little bit. Push it down, hinge it over. When you run this glue bottle, you're actually making contact with the wood. That's what's guiding the tip. Be nice to have a really good close-up of this process of this glue going in, but maybe I'll do a short video on exactly what's going on that glue tip. You explain your choice for trailing edge, the wood pattern. Yeah, the wood pattern, I think what you're talking about is the way the wood is, the grain is positioned according to the trailing edge. I think that's what you're talking about. Now what I've always done, and I don't know if it really makes a big difference, but so if this is your core, I like the wood parallel to the leading edge, and as it comes back to the trailing edge, it's at an angle. This has a double taper, okay? This wing is tapered from the leading edge and the trailing edge forward. You could split the difference. The thinking is if you have really soft wood, like bendable, like this is A grain, see how easy that conforms? If you're gonna make this wing and you're gonna wrap 360 around this wing, you want your AB grain to be here because that's where it's got to bend all the way around. This wing, you'll see where this is actually a glued on leading edge. The other wings, there's the full radius that go all the way around. So, hope that answers it. The thinking is even on a leading edge like this, it's glued on, and then you come up this way, the wood bends easier when it's in line with the bend. Going forward, the other wings I've got that have a radius leading edge, got a stack over here, these here, okay, these wings were cut with the all the way around. That's the leading edge cut into it. So what's going to happen here, I'm going to take the sheeting, the center section of the sheeting, I got to make sure that there's no seam right here. So I got to position this wing on this sheet so the 3-inch sheet is right here. Okay, it's got to be A grain and it's got to be wet. And you're going to form it over a plug, and then you're going to let it dry, and that will be your sheeting that will go in the vacuum bag, top and bottom, all the way around the front. And the process of making that happen will be sort of apparent here shortly if I get to that point where I can bag this. So hopefully, we'll see how far we can get today. Okay, so now what we're going to do, let's see, we got 4 here and 3 here. Let's glue these 2 sheets together and make one big sheet. Let's see here. So I'm going to true up an edge here on this one here. It might already be true, I can't remember. Nope. Okay. Let me get my board here. Yeah, it helps when I can actually see the comments come in. Taken me 5 years, but I think I'm getting closer to perfecting it. The video part of it. I'd start out with a glitchy internet. It's still glitchy, and it was always, let me see where that scrap piece is. It was always hit and miss. Let's see, I just glued that piece on. It was okay. There's my bad piece. Got to keep track of where that bad piece is. And going up here, still got a foot of snow. Oh my gosh. Wow. We're cutting grass here forever. I cut the grass probably for 3 or 4 weeks. Not much, but I mean, it's cutting. So yeah, I feel for you on all that snow. A lot of building, I guess, right? Well, we've had snow all the way in the 1st of May. I remember there was a picture in the barber shop I used to go to, and it had like 1.5 inches of snow on the Indianapolis 500 track in the 1st week of May. It's like, wow, that'd make you nervous, wouldn't it? See if we can run a race in the snow. But it, you know, it always, by the end of May, you're pretty much 100% cleared. So I think, let me see where I'm at here. I think I got it good enough. See if this matches. Yeah, it's good enough, so we're good. And as you're going along, let's see. I hate walking away, but that's the way it is when you live stream. As you're going along, if you start to glue these things together and something just doesn't want to come together, just re-straight edge it, re-sand it. The other thing, if you have different brands of wood, middle of May, yeah, that's wow, that's I bet it's beautiful in June and July up here though. If you get some disparity in the thickness of the sheet, basically what's going to happen is the side with the tape is going to hold true, and your disparity usually comes through on the other side. It's like right here, I can feel that this sheet's a little bit thicker. We're only talking thousandths. When you flip it over and you rub it down tight, it'll bottom out on that tape. And usually the tape side is the side that's usually good. I mean, well, they're both good, but one will be better. And it's the same thing. The nice thing about this hinge method here, it doesn't matter how long the sheet is, you just drape it over the edge. And this is all done by sight. I can actually see a little bit of glue being applied to that edge. Usually I can hit it in one shot. Now I'm getting a little rusty where it's coming off the board a little bit and dripping. But that's alright. You'll see how it's all going to go together. And when you get this thing sanded, you're going to look at this sheet and you're going to flip it over one side or the other, and you're going to see one side that's just ever so slightly better than the other. And you're going to pick the best out of each side, and that's one you're going to go with for the outside. Now, the other secret is here. Get a good wing skin, in my opinion. I've got a piece of marble. This piece of marble is, it's like perfect on one side, polished. And of course the back side's not, but that's just, there's always one good side. This was left over from a shower install. Yeah, the glass makes the difference. This is a pad that I used. I had this since in the late 80s, early 90s. It's a piece of aluminum with 100 grit. Now this 100 grit was floor sanding material. It was made for a belt sander to sand oak floors. It's 100 grit, and I got on both sides. Now, this aluminum plate wasn't perfectly flat, but what I did is I lapped it in. Fast forward to today, this is coarser. This is 60 grit, or not 60, this is 80 grit. And it's sitting on this bigger marble plate. The way you can get away with coarse grit is the amount you have. Obviously, if you had 80 grit on a small sanding pad like this and you start to work it, what'll happen is then you're going to have dips and stuff. So this gets me there pretty quick. Basically, I just go with the weight of this thing, and I'll use this to get the big stuff down quick. And when I sand, I just sand sort of a back and forth with the grain, and I'll do a diagonal. Make sure that you get all the crud off the sandpaper, the glue globs or whatever. You don't want any big hunks of junk under the sandpaper. I got one that rubbed a little bit there. Now if you get something that rubs in there and you got a little gouge, yeah, no flex. You don't want the flex. You just wet that down a little bit, and what'll happen if the fiber's not broken and it's sort of pushed down, it'll pop back. At this stage, you don't want anything flexing. You don't want a soft back. You want a hard back pad. And at this point, I'm actually lifting up just a little bit, not much. The other thing is, you don't want to set this wood on a glass top that's got a glob of glue on it. So I already made sure that that was clean before I set this on there. But if you're working on the glass, you want to make sure that there's no glob. And try to stay with the grain. I'll vary it a little bit at a little bit of an angle. For the most part, I stick with the grain. Now there's disparity on the thickness right here. This sheet's thicker. So I'll pay a little bit more attention right here. I'm looking at this cell phone, and I'm looking at the TV screen. I'm not sure you get this picture quality. It looks like it's coming in and out of focus. At this point, I don't like to take it all the way down to where it's perfect yet. I like to flip it over, and I work back and forth. Try to stay away from setting something hard and sandy on this glass, so get that out of the way. Now, you can do the vacuum. I'll just do this. So since this side doesn't have quite as much disparity, it's the tape side. Should be wearing a mask, but I won't be able to talk. I'll go with this 100 grit, which is really wore down. This is probably more like 150 now. It's old sandpaper. I'll use this. And you can hear, when you start sanding glue seams, you can hear the clicking noise. You know, you can hear it. It's a higher pitch. At this point, I just go with the feel of it, and I sort of glance at an angle. And then when I get closer to having it finished, I'll pick it up and I'll candle it. And to be honest with you, if you start out with 16th and you're really careful, it'll probably be end up more like 1/20th. Now right out here is this little hickey. I got to make sure that I don't put the wing over that spot. Now right here, I'm back to the disparity in the thickness. I'll work at an angle, and I'll scrub that down to where it matches. And make sure you go all the way to the edge. You don't want to dish it out. Gotta remember that. So far, it's looking good. Got a big dusty mess. Do the old flop like that, that way it keeps the dust from balling up underneath it. Make sure I'm still good and smooth. One of the things I'm going to do when I glue this wood down, it's going to go down on top of fiberglass. So fiberglass being wet out with epoxy is going to be my adhesive layer. And that's where the major difference is going to come up. Now you're asking, why would I wet fiberglass out, 3/4 or an ounce cloth, lay that on the foam and put the wood on it and bag it? Well, the reason being, once I get the wing skin for the radius leading edges all one piece, and I form the wing skin all the way around the wing, there's no way to flatten it back out to squeegee the wood, squeegee the epoxy on the wood. So that's my workaround. So basically, this wing, even though it's traditional with the leading edge, it's a test bed. This will test out the adhesion of the fiberglass cloth, the wood, and the foam. Now, ideally, I should have done a test block. I should have taken a 8-inch square piece and tested this whole thing before I actually did the whole wing. I'm about 99% sure it's going to work, so I've done enough vacuum bagging and glass and wood work to know that it will work. I used to do some testing. I took foam block scrap, and I took a whole bunch of scrap, probably about 8 pieces of wood, and I did all different things. I used Gorilla Glue, white glue, epoxy thick, epoxy hardly anything, and I had this whole lineup of different adhesions or different glues, but they were all under the same vacuum. It doesn't take much to make 5-pound wood stick to 1-pound foam. You know, the bond layer doesn't have to be that great because the foam is actually so soft, the wood's so soft, no matter what I did, I still had a good bond The difference was some were lighter than others, you know. So at this point, I like to pick it up and I candle it. I look down the sheet, and what you're going to see, the side that had a little bit more disparity, it's got little shiny spots. Now you can't see the shiny spots by looking down like this. You have to pick it up and candle it. 20-watt diode laser. Since I chatted with you last, I'm just in the process. Bigger. Yeah, that would be cool. Okay, so the 20-watt. Yes, the wood glue is heavier. Let me ask you this: a 20-watt diode laser, is that cut through 1/8" ply, or is that something that I'm pretty sure it's balsa? But you know, I fought technology as far as computers for a long time. Now this foam cutter, yeah, that's nice. And I don't have any, I love technology, but I fought it because I didn't want to complicate or slow myself down. But you know, it gets to the point where there's no other way of doing it. When you start to get into these really complex shapes, like for a wing with, you know, you see these wings like these RC planes that have dihedral, anhedral, dihedral, and they have all these curves, you know, like a bird wing. You know, if you're going to make a wing, a composite wing like that, about the only way of doing it is if you 3D print or CNC mill out the mold. So the computer allows you to get some really wild shapes. So, you know, being the Winship models TF is you want about. I'm not sure Winship models TF. I did have an old website. It was maybe that's what you're talking about. It was in the 90s. It wasn't videos. It was just an old website. It was all printing pictures. So this is about where I need it, right here. This has got me looking pretty good. And to be honest with you, if there's a little shininess or something, you know, you can always sand it once it's on the core. Old school. Yeah, I'm old school. I'm old. But, you know, old school is good. I think it was explained once. Blue Ox Tool Works. He's a guy up in, I think it was Oregon, and he did all the woodworking for these beautiful buildings in California, the West Coast, Oriental stuff, you know, with all the carvings. He started buying machine tools, and everything he had in there was World War II, up till 1945 or 1948. He's got stuff in there from the 1800s. So everything he was using was obviously analog. And he ran a school where he'd teach kids and different people how to run the machines and woodworking. He explained it like this, and it's very obvious to me after getting into this YouTube stuff. We go forward in time, and the information is constantly coming in. People get on there and they come up with new ways of doing things. all these newfangled machines. And to make room for all the new information, it's like a train going down the track. All this information is collected at the front of the train. It goes down the train. To make room for more information, they throw the perfectly good stuff off the back of it. There's a full. Yeah. Now CNC has its place, but I'll tell you what. We're throwing away too much good information to make room for stuff that just because it's new, not because it's better sometimes. I remember I worked at a machine shop. It was King Machine on the west side of Indianapolis. Jim Van Arsdale owned it, and he made the Shuriken engines. If you research the Shuriken 049 back in the 90s, Jim developed all the tooling for the Shuriken. Matter of fact, his motors were so good and so fast and so unbeatable and so powerful that Cox Manufacturing was showing up at his door wanting to talk to him about it. And where I'm going with this is, in the machine shop it was all CNC. I'd worked there probably 3 or 4 months, and all of a sudden this jet mill, which is I think out of Taiwan, this jet mill drill shows up, and it's just on a little stand. You know, it's not very big. It's probably 220. And everybody's gathering around this jet mill, and I said, Jim, what are you doing with this? You got all this, you know, CNC milling machines and stuff? He said, well, he said, if this machine is over there running parts 12 hours a day, and I need a widget made, he said, then basically I can't shut the CNC down to make the widget. So that was his thinking. You always need something for a dozen parts. So if they had something that needed to be milled out and there were only 12 pieces, he wouldn't fire up a CNC. He wouldn't write the program unless he needed to. He would actually take it over there to the Bridgeport, set that up, and mill them out. So right now, if you go back, I think the last video, I made this spar. This spar was glued into there. So what I've got to do right now is sand this spar to the top of this foam. I got to put a little plug down this hole somewhere. When I sand this spar down flush, then I'll be ready to put some wood on it. Now this wing, and it's pretty obvious now, this is not going to have the clips because it's going to be a wing that has wing mounted gear. The wing that Steve Berry wanted was going to have the wing mounted gear, a rolled leading edge formed. This is my wing as a test bed. I just want to figure out a few things before I go the full deal here. So that's where I'm at on that. One of the things, the last video, if I got watching, I had this balsa stripper out. I'm coughing that wood up. But anyway, when I was doing this balsa stripper, I was doing it off camera for some reason. It wasn't even in the frame. So this is the way it works, just in case you've never seen it before. A lot of the guys have, but you adjust this balsa master air screw stripper this way or that way, and that provides your dimension. The blade is raised up off the bench by about the thick this way. And then I always like to cut it flat. You'll see some people, they like to do this, which is fine. I don't like this problem, okay? If you're doing it like this, you're not going to get as good of an edge. So I like to lay the balsa flat and lay the edge. This is the way it's made, to go flat. And then once it's flat, I just pull it across the edge. Now it doesn't cut all the way through because the blade is recessed a little bit, but it's so fine, it's just a hair. Thickness of a hair or less is what's holding it on. But that way you can cut on glass and it's not dull on your blade. And by cutting flat here and flat here, it allows you to get more of a 90 edge. Now the only thing you'll have to do maybe is just kiss it with a piece of sandpaper like that at the bottom. So that's how you can actually knock out a lot of pieces of wood really quick that are thin. So I thought I'd throw that in there. This here was used leading and trailing edge last video. Right now I'm going to be real careful. It's not sticking out much. So whatever you have down in there, carbon fiber or whatever, light plywood, you want to come up with something soft and sand it flush. You don't want plywood or carbon up next to your skin. I mean, you can do it, but it'll show up in your finish later. So try to refrain from doing that. When this spar is glued into this wing, I'm always referencing the center line right here. And so when the spar goes in with some woodworking glue, I tape this so it's snug. And you don't want it to bow or flex. You want it to slide in there perfect. Double check your line to make sure that you're not, when the spar goes in, you don't want this to happen. And you don't want this to happen. So spend some time and look at it and make sure that it's back to where it's supposed to be. The other thing, when you put the spar in, double check to make sure your leading edge wasn't bowing out. You don't want this to happen, you don't want that to happen. So that's a quick dissertation on that. This is probably, oh, I don't know, 220 grit. It's pretty fine. The bar matches this bar. And just like anything else, you don't want a flat spot here. A lot of sanding is done by feel and sound and sight. It's going to take all your senses. Yes, Steve, I'm happy with it. Hopefully by the time I get to yours, there's 3 cores sitting over here. This one and 2 more plus another block I need to cut up. This is a test bed. Once I get this figured out, which I think I got it figured out, but basically the fiberglass cloth is going to go on here. This is going to go on top and it's going to be bagged down. So the reason why the cloth is taking the epoxy and using that as an adhesion layer is because that'll be my only option. Once this wood is actually formed all the way over, I'm not able to unfold it to wet it out with epoxy. So what's going to happen, this wing skin will be formed. I'll put the fiberglass cloth on the core that I already have epoxy on it. This will go over the top and it'll go down over the top. I'll pull it, tape it, get it positioned right, and then bag it. So that's the way that's going to work. And that's why I'm trying this first to see how it's all going to play out. Now, I got this to keep things rolling. I got this little divot, and I'm not sure. This is the end of the spar. We open. I think it'll gap that little divot. If it doesn't, I'll just have to putty up on top of the wood before I put the next coat of glass on. I think a 1/16 will span that gap. Ideally, you want everything perfect. I don't know. Let me think about this for a second. If I put some kind of wood down in there, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to stick a little bit of wood down in there. Here's what I'm going to do. I just got a gut feeling. So I'm going to take these little strips of wood and make vertical grain in this hole. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to put a little bit of wood glue on them. So run them down in there. And then sand them flush. I just feel better about that. Let me grab some wood glue. This is what I glued the spar in with right here. If I get to it, Steve, I'm going to actually use your advice on the carbon fiber on the next spar. I'll show you that. Probably not today, but maybe I'll do it tomorrow or the next day. I thought about that. A way of not gluing my finger, a way of not gluing my fingers to the carbon. I think I got it figured out. And it's just like anything else, you guys. If you do something once, it's like, well, it worked, but it's, you know, there's got to be an easier way. And you do it again. You do it again, and finally, after about 3 or 4 iterations, you got it figured out. It's like I was telling them at JT Composites, I'd make something. I said, yeah, by the time I finish the job, I'll have it perfected. It'll be over. So all I'm doing here is jamming enough wood down in here. It's pretty tight to fill that gap. I'm going to cut that flush. This stuff, I don't have much glue on it. It tacks up really quick. Matter of fact, that stuff grabs so quick and tight. I really can't shove these back and forth right now. No, I can a couple of them. They're in there pretty good. Put them on here. Got them pretty good. Don't worry about using too much glue. Basically, all you're doing is you're just putting enough glue to stick, hold it in place. You're not looking for strength. Okay, let that set up for a minute. Now I'm going to take these cores and see if I can split them. Let's see where I have a bad piece. Okay, I got to stay away from that corner. And I don't think it's super critical here. The grain, I think I can split the difference. I'm only going to do one core in the bag. I'll do the other off the video, but let me use this one to actually get a reference on what I need. This is the longer core. So I'm going to put that here. Shorter one here. And I think what I'm going to do, I'll run the grain so it's sort of the happy medium here. Now in the bag, once you put this in the bag, you're only able to have maybe 1/8 of an inch overhang. You don't want too much. You get too much overhang when the vacuum goes down, you end up curls it up too much. So this is what I like to do. I'll come out here and I'll make a little mark like that. Mark. And what I like to do is roll it. So roll it this way. Come out. See, I need to do both of them in the big one. So I'm going to cut that long. This is where you have to think a little bit. Otherwise, you start getting dyslexic. I'm going to forego the cutting board. This is the one I'm going to do, so I need to make sure they both have the span I need. Come here. Yeah, nothing better than actually using the part to lay out your lines. I try to stay away from measuring unless I actually need the information of the numbers. I always find it easier just to lay the part on the part and adjust accordingly. For better or worse here, this is the one that I'm going to build the plane around this wing. So if it ain't perfect, it's okay. This is going to be the sort of the test bed. And once you get, let's say you get this on the wing and you put some tape on it, if it needs to be trimmed a little bit, you can still do that before it goes in the bag. Won't be any big deal. And to be honest with you, if you actually cut it too short before you actually stick it in the bag, it's always easy to splice on another piece if you have to. Keep the grain going the same way. So that cut off all my the bad stuff. So I was able to work around that. Well, we're closing in on it. The bar hadn't gone out. You know, it's sort of mixed feelings about these videos going live. It's like, wow, they string on forever. But it saves me editing time. And the other thing with a live video, it's like happened earlier, it gives somebody the opportunity, I guess, to ask questions. I think my experience with making videos, people are hesitant to go into the comments and ask a question because they don't get the instant feedback. I mean, they can ask a question and it might take a week or two for the person to actually check the comments. And so there's a big gap there. But the live videos allow, if it's done right, if I'm watching the screen, pretty much instant feedback. So that helps. So I'm going to peel a little bit off of this leading edge. Let's see. This one here, I sort of split the difference. It's got a little angle here. I think it's going to work out. A little bit off here. Okay, I think this is where I need it to be. So, the next step is sort of the uncharted territory. Let me get rid of the straight edge and stuff here. So the next step is to actually get some epoxy on some glass cloth. And that'll be the tricky part. Not so much tricky, but it'll be different. Let's put it that way. While I'm thinking about it, let me get this knocked down. Like I said, this is a test bed to make sure the others gonna work. So I feel better about that little spot being filled up with some wood. I was worried about that causing a dimple. Alright, let's clean this up a little bit. Believe it or not, when you vacuum bag with epoxy versus the method of contact cement, you can get away with dust on this wing. Matter of fact, if you use epoxy and you apply it to the wood and it's dusty, absolutely makes no difference. When you rub the epoxy over it and you squeegee it, basically you just work that dust right into your finish, or right into the wood. Thickens the epoxy, doesn't hurt a thing. Now, contact cement, that's a different story. You want it to be pretty clean. Okay, so now what we got to do, we're going to get some glass cloth over here. Now, the $1,000,000 question is what weight? And Alamov talked about when they mold those airplanes, he's come up with like a 1.2 or 1.5 ounce cloth, balsa core, and a 1.5. For some reason, he said that was what worked. So I got some 1 1/4 over there. I'll slice some of that off, and then I'll wet it out, and then we'll stick it on the core and bag her down. So here's my choices. I've got, let's see, let me position the camera over here. I've got, let me see, pull my bench away here. For anybody that's wondering, the weight of that spar, that carbon spar I made in there, is 3.5 grams. That's what it weighed. This is pretty fine stuff. This is finer than frog hair. So, let's see, what do I need here? I need, let's see, 1 foot. Let me just get 2 feet of this stuff. 1, 2, 4. 4. Not close enough. All right. Now you got to remember the glass cloth. This glass cloth is going to add some weight. I broke my neck over there. It's going to add some weight, but you got to remember that the glass on the outside of the wing is going to replace your finish, or the filler and primer. And the glass underneath the wood is going to actually provide strength of your core, and that's going to actually give you some some structure. So there's a lot of give and take here. It's not all apples to apples. Now the trick to wet this out and get it on the foam core, I've been thinking about it and I think I got it figured out. So what I'm going to do, so I don't get confused, I got to make sure that this is the side I want against the core. Okay. So this is how much glass I need to actually wet out. And this will be bagged probably about 7 inches of mercury, 6 or 7. And obviously too much, but it'll be cut down. I want it oversized because I want to put it on the core wet. And then I want to trim it once it's on the core. So common sense tells me I need to do it on a sheet of plastic so I can maneuver it and pick it off the glass. Let me grab some of this. This is plastic that was I forget, it was like bagging material. This stuff went bad. I guess it has a shelf life. So it's not actually any good for what it was designed for. But it works out good to do this, to wet out, to transfer. So I'll just use it as a transfer plastic. Sorry about putting my back into the camera. That'll give me something to wet out. I could do it on the glass, but it'd make a heck of a mess. Don't ask me what this stuff was. It's some kind of stretchy bag film, stretch lawn or something. And I did a part, I don't know, it was about a year ago. I used this stuff, and when I first bought it, it would release. Man, when I actually used it, this stuff glued down like couldn't get it off the part. Instead of throw it away, I thought, well, it's always good for a drop cloth, right? Yeah, you can just see spots right here where there's holes in it. Nasty old stuff. That'll work out good. Tell you what I'll do, I'll probably cover them holes up a little bit so it doesn't bleed through. Like I said, this is just drop cloth basically. One of the things they do when they wet laminate stuff, they'll actually sandwich it between plastic. But with this case, I don't think I need to. There's no way around it. It's going to get a little messy maybe. Now, since this is a new deal here, I'm not sure how much I need on the weight of resin. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this over there, I'm going to weigh it, and I'm going to mix up the same amount of resin as the weight of this cloth. Then I'm going to add the curing agent to it, which will take it 33% over the weight. Which should give me enough extra. I just don't want to come up short and have to mix more resin. So it's not super tight, but it's good enough. It's laying flat enough where I can squeegee this out. The other thing, once you squeegee it, if you get too much resin, you can go ahead and blot it up. Now, you're probably thinking, why don't you just take this glass cloth here, lay it on the balsa wood, and wet it out? Well, you can do that, but there's two reasons why I'm not doing it. Number one, excess resin goes into this wood, which I don't want. I want enough resin to actually adhere the wood to the skin, but I don't want a lot of soak in here. I want enough to add strength. The second reason is when it comes time to actually make the core that has the wrap leading edge and the full sheeting from trailing edge to trailing edge all the way around the leading edge, it's got to be done this way. It can't be done on the wood because the wood is already formed into the shape of the wing. So I want to repeat what I'm going to do on the next wing. So that's the reason why I'm wetting it out here and then transferring it later onto the wood, because or I have the same process on this wing as I the wrap leading edge. So this is just basically this is just a test bed to see how it's going to work out. Now let's see how much weight is in this piece here. Okay. This piece of cloth is 22 grams. But you got to remember it's oversized. So I'm going to mix up 22 grams of resin and then put the hardener in at 33%. And that's going to wet that out. Let me move the old tripod over here. So you can see the old mix process. The old mix process you guys probably watched before. I think if I do 20 grams of resin, it'll be alright. Makes my math easier. 3.5 on the cup. So let's move this to 20. That'll give us 20 grams of resin. Hopefully I don't overshoot it. Overshot it by, oh, half gram. Okay, so let's go 33%. Maybe 6.6. Let's see. 6.6. 6.7. So I'm going to figure it twice. I got to make sure when I get the wing cut, get this far, can't make a mistake doing this. So I got 21 grams of resin, 3.3, 3/10, 2.6. 7. I gotta get my squeeze bottles going. Save me from doing this transferring the cups. And get my trusty advertising credit card out. That's my squeegee. I figured somebody's lurking. I looked at the phone. I think there's 5 watchers or something. To be honest with you, when you do these live streams, that's probably the best way to watch them is just if you turn them on and just listen to them or sort of look at them every once in a while. Yeah, the squeegees at Walmart, yeah. Yeah. I hate to throw anything away. I look at stuff, I thought, man, I can always use that for this or that. I've got, let's see, some vacuum bag tubes out. Got to drag my little pump out. I got this Aerospace Composites little pump. It's a little hobby pump, but it works out perfect for these styrofoam wings. So this is what I use. You guys have seen this before. This right here. So yeah, I've had to throw some stuff away. My gosh, sometimes it just, you can't help it, but you get so much stuff. Sometimes you got to, but I try not to. So once you get this stuff mixed up, it's all right to let it sit there for a few minutes, let the air bubbles go out of it. Let it settle a little bit. Digging through this cabinet here. I thought my vacuum pump was a little bit handier than it was. So basically I just stir the heck out of this stuff. You know, the old scrape the side deal. This is a HTR 250 and a 386. And it's a high temp resin. So the thinking is when this thing sits out in the sun, it starts to bake in a car, the resin will keep getting harder and harder. It'll post cure it. And 386 and 250. 1063 is the other hardener. That hardener is 24% instead of 33. And that seems to work out all right. I use that on the landing gear and stuff, but the 33% lowers the viscosity a little bit. And it gives you a high temp tool or a part. Let me get my old phone back over here. So far this looks like it's working out all right on the tripod. Now this is just floating on the plastic. I don't have it taped down. Okay, so let me get this pump plugged in and get the bag somewhat set up so I don't have to fiddle with this too much. Once I get this wet out, I want to pretty much get it in the bag. So I got a really long hose on this thing, so I'm able to plug this thing in over here. And I'll tell you what, I might be working on a 4-foot by 8-foot bench, but these projects eat this bench up like it was nothing. So you can just hear the power, you know. Here's my quick connect, so I got a big hose so I can go all the way across this bench. Right now I'm running like 11 inches. Let me turn that down a little bit. I want to run it about 7 to 10. That's about all I want to pull on it. I'm just going to double check, make sure that we got enough bag here. I'm good to go. Let's see where this pump cycles at. Let me see how much. that'll maintain about 8 or 9. Yeah, it'll shut off at 10. I'll get it shutting off at 9. That'll be good. All right. Get this out of the way. Yeah, it's always fun to try something new, especially on a live stream. That way you can share the pain. So right now, I'm going to start in the middle. I'm going to tack this down so it's swimming all over the place. So I'm going to put some resin right in the middle. You know, I mixed the resin for the weight of the cloth. It almost looks like I need more resin, but I'm going to do my darndest to make sure that I got enough to do this without mixing more resin. Now, if you guys remember seeing this process where you squeegee this epoxy on the foam, or on the balsa wood, I'm sorry, it's almost going on dry. They've got almost, well, the bare minimum of epoxy. And my theory is the epoxy goes down in the wood and it wets out the balsa wood, and once it becomes subject to a vacuum, the glue comes out of the wood. So realistically here, the only glue I need is just enough to wet this cloth out. I don't need anything above that. All I got to do is make sure that the cloth has got a little bit of resin on it, not much, just enough to wet it. So I'm finding extra resin right here. So what I've got to do is actually find out where the resin is a little bit thick get it out of that area. The success as far as the weight of this thing, I think, is pretty much dependent on this stuff here. The other thing you got to remember, when this stuff goes, there's your work time with this. This resin, the HTR 250 and the 386, I should have roughly, I don't know, 15-20 minutes maybe. Now, if you need more work time, there's Kevin Matney. He's up in Michigan. He's done a lot of Quickie 500 airplanes, and he's been using this HTR 250 and resin services probably as long as I have, if not longer. And I was talking to Kevin on the phone, and I've seen the product on their spec sheet on their website. It's HT386-99. And I was always wondering about it, but Kevin told me that he's had good luck with it and it gives him more open time. So let's say you're vacuum infusing something and you're actually sucking the resin in the bag, you know, that process. It gives you more open time to actually pull the resin into the bag. So I bought a quart of it and I mixed it up, and he's right, it gives you a lot more working time. So if you're doing this, and let's just say that you think you need more than 20 minutes or whatever I got here, put the 386-99. That'll get you up with the time you need. I mean, it'll give you more work time. So the beauty of the resin systems, they give you options as far as curing agents, working times, viscosities. And I asked a guy at a professional shop over at JT, we were talking, I said, what do you think about this or that, you know, different people? And he said, Dan, he said, go with what you know how to use and what you use. He said, if it's working for you, stick with it. A lot of it has to do with, do you like the people you're dealing with? Do they ship it on time? Will they help you out with questions, you know? So Resin Services pretty much checked all the boxes for me for what I needed to do. Basically, when you choose a resin, you're really not choosing a brand name per se, you're choosing a spec sheet. You're looking at a spec sheet. Now, let's just say that, you know, this manufacturer, whether it be Shell Chemical with an EPON or, you know, different places, I mean, they don't fit your bill for what you need, then you move on, you know, you find something that will match your specs. And that's, you know, that's pretty much how that works. People say, well, what resin do you need? That's what I need. And it's like, well, what are you doing with it? You know, you're making a tune pipe, you're making a prop, you're making plywood doublers to balsa wood, you know, it just depends. Or are you using it more of an adhesive than a laminating resin? So, okay, so I got this mixed up. When I squeegee this right now, I really can't get any more out of it. If I push down pretty hard, I'm, well, getting maybe a little bit, but just barely. I mean, this, I think I'm getting to the point where I about got everything out of it that I can get out of it as far as resin. And that's all I want. I want something that's dry, wet, just like it is right now. And the old blot method, if you see, you know, something, it's like, well, is there anything there? Just blot it up. This is coming off the plastic a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm there. Yeah. I think I got it, Robert. It's all right. Now the tricky, messy part, I guess. I'll tell you what, acetone's your friend, but I tell you what, you got to get it away from the styrofoam. You know. What I'm doing here is just trying to get my gloves back to zero. Get, you know, to where I'm not super sticky. All right. Now this is the part with the uncharted territory. This is where the backing material, in my opinion, is mandatory. You cannot do this process without having this on a piece of plastic. At least not in my opinion. So what this allows you to do is actually handle it like this, okay? You got this plastic on it, and you know, you can maneuver it. The plastic is doing two things. It's allowing you to handle it, and it's also allowing you to move it around. And now this tape's on the outside. That's where I had some holes in the plastic. So don't let that throw you off. And this whole process is done as a test bed for what's coming up with the form leading edge skin. I told Bob Hunt, we were talking about, you know, foam wings and stuff. He said, well, you know, he's pretty much out of the foam wing business. But I mean, as far as the production and stuff. He said you have to pick up where I left off or whatever. said, you're going to have to kick the can down the road the rest of the way. I said, well, I'm thinking it's one of these things where once you do it enough and you get so far down the road, it's like the returns are so far and few between. It takes another 100% of effort to squeeze another 5% out of it. I said, basically, Bob, it's going to be one of these things where I'm not kicking the can down the road, I'm beating it down the road with a sledgehammer. We laughed. So, alrighty, it's looking pretty good. Now see, I'd have never been able to do that if I didn't have this plastic on here. It'd have been the biggest wadded up, gooey mess you've ever seen. The plastic allows all this to happen. And who knows, maybe it's still not done yet. I'm still working out wrinkles. And technically, you could actually put this in that bag if this was a release fabric, and you wouldn't actually need, if you were just doing this and no wood, you wouldn't need to take this off, you'd leave it on. But since we're doing the wood on here, this plastic has to come off. George Spar did some demos in Toledo where they were actually doing some stuff with Mylar, and it worked out really well. The Mylar was giving your outside finish, and it'll become obvious. There's a reason why I didn't want to go with that method. It'll become obvious. I can make it lighter and better. Like I said, it's one of these things where we're to the point now with a lot of this technology, we're spending a lot of time to squeeze just a little bit more out of it. Uncharted territory here. Now see, right now, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, well, it's going okay. But here's what's happening that I didn't think was going to happen. I thought it would stick to the foam a little bit more than it is. Right now, this is sticking to itself, not so much the foam. So I want it to go to the foam and lay on the foam. we have options right now. We can always go back and stick it to the wood, but let's see how far we can get with it. I think what's going to happen, at least on this one, I think that this is going to have to go on the actual wood. Now I'm trying to think ahead. It's like, okay, so we put this on the wood, and then how do we form it in one sheet when we do the rolled leading edge? So there would be no problem wetting this out on the wood versus the plastic. That would work. The problem is right now is actually wetting this out and getting it sticking to the foam. So let me think about this for a minute. I think what I'm going to do is actually get it to the wood at this stage. I'm going to have to regroup. It's going to work, but I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to transfer that when the thing's already built up, and so I'm going to have to think about that. So this basically becomes my layer just like it would have been if it was, you know, wet out on the wood to begin with. I knew there was going to be a little exploring to do, and that's why I did this one first, just to see how well it was going to work. It'll work, but I'm trying to figure out how to wet this out on a preformed sheet. You know, we'll figure it out. Had to go back. Had to go back and watch Joe Daly's video. He did something similar to this, and I can't remember what it was. He did some glass on some skin. Now what you don't want any puckers in this. I know that. When you get this glass on this wood, you want it to be flat. So I'm going to take my time here. We got time. I'm going to work this out, and we're going to get rid of all the little puckers and stuff, and get it all tight. The other thing you got to watch out when you start handling this resin, when your gloves start getting wet with resin, keep them clean. Otherwise, they get sticky, and it wants to pull up the resin when you handle it, you know. So that's a good takeaway. Keep your gloves fairly clean. Now, one of the mistakes when I peeled that back off, I distorted this fabric a little bit. You could see when I pulled it. That's why I'm working a little bit harder right now to get this stuff to lay down. Sort of reminds you of putting on wet silk span or silk, you know. Trying to pull out all Little wrinkles. Now see, if I wet this out on top of this balsa wood, which I'll have to figure out a way to do. Ought to have been done by now. And once this sits there for a minute, it's starting to stick to the wood now. I think it'll be a great method. It's just a matter of working the details out here. I think I'll have a live stream of 3 hours. Oh, Robert, you said, yeah, my metrics go to pot after an hour. It's like, I don't care. I roll that camera for 3 hours. I ain't got no metrics. He's worried about the metrics. I was teasing him. I said, you know, I put up a video on wheel pants and I get 20 views in like 2 or 3 days. I said, man, that just entices me to put up another one. Oh, Lordy. Okay, so that's to the point now when this thing bags down, it's gonna be fine. So let's get off some of this hangover. Trim this up a little bit. Trash bucket a little bit closer. And we're going to see how well this plastic transfer works out on the wood. The other thing, Robert asked me, what's your open time on this epoxy? And that's something you got to really be careful of. Now, the open time, once you get it spread out like this, you got a lot more work time than you would if it was sitting in the cup. If it's sitting in the cup, all balled up, you get into a exothermal, it starts creating its own heat. And then your pot life goes down. If you can get it spread out, then you're all right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see this wing, the weight and the properties of it, you know, see how it comes out. And really, that's all you need. You just need it to look damp and feel damp. Believe me, when this bag, when it goes down, that'll adhere to the core just fine. Okay, now here's where you can't get dyslexic on yourself. You got this side here. You gotta make sure it's still lined up the way I want it. Okay, I gotta get it on this side. Okay, that's why I put the tape there. I wanted to double check it. Otherwise, if you don't get it right, then you're in trouble. Then you got 2 panels that don't match. So this should be easier. Right now I've got the plastic on here. So I should be able to put some pressure on here and get this down to the wood. The wrong side going. Go. We're cooking with gas now. You know, there might be a way that I could do this on the curved piece, you know, that when I form it, I'm going to have to find out a way how to do that. See how easy this is going down? Let's see if the plastic comes off easy. I got to figure out a way to get this inside somehow on that formed sheet. I'm not sure how. Now what Bob Hunt did, he formed the sheet for the leading edge and put that on, and then he came back later and did the rest of it. And it might be one of these things, that's what I'm gonna have to do. I was trying to figure out a way around that step. But I might have to go with what Bob had. Put the leading edge on, let it cure. Come back with the rest of it, I don't know. But anyway, that's the reason why I did this wing first. I just wanted to see how close I could get it. So I'm going to tamp this down pretty good because I want this glue to start working into that wood. See if I can get that glue to start sticking to the wood. So when I peel this plastic off, it'll stay where I want it. Up here is a little dry. It didn't seem like it wanted to lay down that well. Okay. This just goes to show you, you can just about do anything. But doing anything and making money or making it timely, that's a whole different story. So, yeah, see how well it's a lot easier in the other method. Just roll this all off there. Some of the actual glue is coming off on the plastic, even making it wider. Yep. I'll get it figured out. Somebody say, man, how'd you save 3 grams? And say, well, another 3 hours. 3 hours got me right where I needed to be. So that's really nice here. Nice and smooth. Honestly, I think the weight is going to come out really good on it. But wetting the glass out on the plastic without all that glue going down in the wood, I think is going to save me weight. And you know what, Steve, if you're watching this thing, if you decided, I told him, I said I'll send you a wing at cost, but I'm going to use you as a test bed. I'm going to do some experimenting. I'll give you your choice. You can, if you want a wing without the gear clips, it doesn't matter. I'll have 3 or 4 of these. So I'd like to see a little bit of resurgence in smaller airplanes. Not for top competition, but you know, I think these size airplanes are great for getting them into tighter spots, electric, no noise. I could take this right around the back of the house in this little open field and fly it around all these houses and probably not have anybody notice it. You know? But believe me, I'm paying attention to where this styrofoam's at. I'm not making sure I don't get any acetone on the styrofoam. Looks good. I think it's coming out pretty light. Smaller, yeah. Yeah, a lot less. Um, that's why I got a hole shot sitting over there. I need to finish that up. It's ready to go on the bench right now as far as the I-beam wing. All the components are done. I got off on a tangent. And some of the critical stuff that I think would be beneficial coming up is the alignment. Um, the alignment is pretty, it's been done many times. Bob Hunt and Billy Werwich did an I-beam video. It's probably the gold standard. So it's all been covered before, but I got some stuff I'd like to do coming up with a full-size stunner. Home wing. And it has to do with jigging everything up to make it straight. And I got the idea off Paul Walker. Paul Walker has some kind of system that he actually sets up. And I made the same thing, basically, but mine's a little bit more adaptable. You can change it up. You can change things on it for different airplanes. Okay, there we go. For better or for worse. Let's see what we got here, see if it's still laying flat for me. Devil's in the details, right? Okay, once I position this thing, and I get my tape out, and I sort of tape it around the perimeter, just in a few places to hold it. Now the extra glass hanging out, it's no big deal. Pattern was developed more or less around the nobler, smaller, yeah. That's what I was telling Robert. I said, you know what? That's why we haven't veered too much from the size and the power of the planes, because it's the pattern that dictates how everything is flown. And the reason why the RC guys, the airplanes, have actually developed and became different, like it used to be the pattern planes, like, well, the 80s and 90s, they were more like the sport planes today, they conventional. Now we got biplanes that are huge side areas for, and there's a reason for that, is because they changed the pattern to incorporate more maneuvers on knife edge, so they had to adapt the airplanes to the actual maneuver. And that's what caused that. Now you got contra-rotating props, and then you got all these different things because the pattern changed. And that's what Robert was saying. Right now we're flying the same pattern they did when they first came out with the Nobler. Same thing. So I'm gonna scoot this around a little bit. Let's see, where am I at here? Now don't be afraid to loosen this up if you don't have the right alignment. Take your time at this point. If you don't get it right at this point, you're stuck. It's one of these things, I could have swore this thing lined up perfect. Now it's almost like it shrunk. so much that you're skewing the glass underneath either. It's about as good as it's going to get. Now there's a little tick mark here, like a 64th of an inch. That's about as good as I'm going to get it for some reason. Don't ask me why. These wings are going to be glued together in the center. Little glass, and there'd be a little teeny tick mark here. Not going to matter. No, I'm not watching the screen as much as I should. Hopefully I'm not missing any comment. Questions. So the glass that comes on the outside of this will be pre-cured on my plate glass table. And what that'll allow me to do is get rid of all the finishing and filling with primer. You got it right. It's a little rough now, Steve. As soon as that bag hits it, as long as you get it all lined up, it'll look good. I've done a lot of them like this, not with the glass underneath, but I've done a lot of these things. And yeah, they're rough. It's like Dennis the Menace's dog. It's rough, you know. The other thing that's surprising, when you use epoxy and you bag it down, this the wing takes on like a ping noise. It's got a certain sound to it, and it's a whole different animal when you get it bagged down. So get this thing. I remember I was up at the World Championships, and they're flying RC pattern, and it's like a golf game. You know, they're out there and they're whispering, you know, because you don't want to make any noise when they're flying. You know, heck, if those guys had to be next to a combat circle, they'd be terrible. But anyway, they are out there really quiet. And I was walking around streaming live with my phone, and my phone goes off, and there's a phone call on. I think, oh my gosh, everybody's looking at me. It's like, oh, they get ready to kick me out of here. You know how when you watch the Masters golf tournament, everybody's whispering, you know? That's the way the RC pattern was. Not so much at the small meets, you know, I've been to a lot of those, but that World Championship deal, I was pretty intense. A lot of fun watching them though. Now, I can't remember who I saw do it. A guy was doing a video, and he's putting his skins on, and he'd actually run a straight pin through his skin when he bagged it. Obviously, the pin didn't go all the way through the whole wing, but he was pinning it down, and that kept everything from shifting, you know. Now, the other thing is, when you get this in the bag, if you're looking at it through the bag and something isn't right, you release the vacuum and reposition it. So it's not like you're at the point of no return. And no breather cloth. Basically, I just put these things in there. That balsa's poor enough that air is going to go from one end of this core to the other. Now, you can put it back in the cradle. That's one way of doing it. We'll demonstrate that way. I like to put the wing right up here by the paper towel. That's my breather, my vacuum. These things, being balsa, it breathes really well. Unlike a regular composite. Let's get this puppy lined up. I like putting the rod against the tabletop, pushing the blue clip over the top worked out well for me. Hopefully this thing is going to hold. Let's see which one have I got here. I got two cradles. Maybe this one. Also, the nice thing about the bag, you can sight down, look at it, make sure it's straight. You know, believe it or not, it's going to do what it wants to do. You just have to reposition if you have to. The core, or the shuck, the cradle, whatever you call it, it has no bearing on it right now. That's just to support it, to put it in there to get it off the bench. Now I've bagged these down on the bench before. I sandwiched the trailing edge down and hit the vacuum as it's being smashed against the bench. That worked out good. We'll put it in the cradle. We'll put a straight edge down the back side here. Lined up. The other thing, get the bag so it's pulling even. Alrighty, let's see what we got. Hook her up. This is a point here I like to actually verify. See where I'm at. Now the danger is when you bag this down, and if it's not sitting perfect in the cradle, it's probably worse than not being in the cradle. That's my experience a little bit. And here's the other method I've done. Okay, I took the vacuum off here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to smash this trailing edge down against the glass. And see if I can get a final pull. And then I just go up and down the core. Make sure, of course, you gotta compensate for the tape, but that looks good. Now, like I said, if there's, I think I got it all centered up. I don't have any little tick marks, you know, that aren't covered. So I think I'm looking good. It's coming out the way I wanted. And then I go, the last thing I like to do is I'll go around the whole thing and make sure that it's covering everything. One of the problems I had, you know, trying to put it down, I probably should have cut it a little bit bigger. As you're putting it down, it's sort of coming up, so it's hard to figure out exactly where to put it because it's floating a little bit. As soon as you bag this thing down, I mean, it just nails it down. It ain't going anywhere. So right now we're 6 or 7 inches, and that's really about all you need. And then it'll drop to maybe 6 or 5, and then it'll kick back on and go to 8 or 9, as long as it fluctuates in there. But yeah, I'm gonna have to come up. This is fine. This is gonna work out perfect. But I gotta come up with a method with this rounded leading edge deal. I gotta rethink that. I knew it was gonna be a problem or a challenge, and that's why I wanted to do this wing and to see how everything stuck together. And it stuck together all right, but it took too much work. So, wow, what a project, huh? Now, the other thing is, once you get this bag down, pull it out of the bag, and then you lightly sand it with this. I mean, ever so slightly, just with the weight of the bar, get it perfect. And then you're gonna cure a sheet of fiberglass on this plate glass that's on a release. And then you're gonna peel that off. And when you peel that fiberglass off the next day, I'll put it in the hot box, it'll be, the top of the fiberglass will be the same finish as the plate glass. It'll be like, well, like glass. And once that top sheet of fiberglass is fully cured, then I'll put it on like just like I did the balsa wood, but it'll go over the balsa wood. So I'll have glass, balsa glass, but the last coat of glass will be smooth, shiny. It'll be finished. The last step is to go in and core it out. So when I core it, instead of coring it the traditional way, which is like this, I'll show you. The guys that already fly stunt, they've already seen these, but this one's been vacuum bagged. This is the traditional balsa wing. So this wing, just plain balsa wood over foam. Now, to get the epoxy on it, you know, it was squeegeed on just like I did the glass, and then you just put this down. But when you core it out, basically you core it out, you know, you got a quarter, 3/16 or whatever you decide to go with here. This is sort of the normal foam. With this here, since I got glass, wood, glass, I'm gonna leave a vertical spar of foam like that, but the wire is going to or almost to the skin. So in effect, all this balsa or all this foam is going away. So what we're going to end up with is a composite monocoque shell. Will it work? We're going to find out. So you can tell by listening to this wing, when you do the epoxy, this is HTR 250 and it might be 106.3, I don't know. You hear that ping. So you end up with a really tight, good composite wing. And it'll hold up to heat. If you set this out on the tarmac and it's 120 degrees and it's cooking, it's not going to hurt it because that's a high temp resin. So if you go with 3M77 or the old contact cement, it used to be Dave Brown sour gum or whatever they had, you never got that ping. It always had a rubbery sound to it. So yeah, this is just the traditional wing. This is what is this? This is a Geo XL wing. It's a good wing, you know. But what we're going to try to do is spend twice as much time to save 5%. So that's where we're at here. And I told Steve Berry, I said, hey, I'm going to turn this into a science fair project. And he said, well, go ahead. So that's where we're at on this. So my expectations, I really didn't have any. I'm happy with the way this turned out. I'm not happy with how long it took. Now, I don't think I can transfer this to the fully formed sheeting. I got to come up with a different method. And like I said, it might be like Bob Hunt did. You do the leading edge, and then you get that down, and then you come up here and you butt the rest of it on. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But anyway, that's where we're at. If I had time today, I was going to do a couple other things. I was going to do some laminating, some balsa wood to fiberglass to make a core for some clips. I was going to take some 3.2 ounce here and here, and I got some breather cloth and some peel ply. That'll be another video. So that's another thing. Save a few grams instead of using light plywood. Go ahead and spend an hour or two. That's a lot of fun. It's food for thought. Okay, I'm going to turn this thing off. And man, I thank you guys for hanging in there. It's been a lot of fun. We'll come back and do it again.